Hey, this is Supernova, reading through How Do We Know the Bible is True, Volume 1, co-edited by Ken Ham and Bodhi Hodge. And I am an atheist, giving you an atheist perspective on these chapters, as well as kind of an atheist rebuttal to the Christian perspective presented here. We're on to Chapter 9, Did Miracles Really Happen?, written by Paul Taylor. This man has a BS in chemistry as well as a master's in science education. And if you just face palmed at the hearing of that, I did too. What a waste of a science education degree. So on to, did miracles really happen? The Christian encyclopedic website Theopedia has defined a miracle as any action in time where the normal operation of nature is suspended by the agency of a supernatural action. What a great advertisement for Theopedia. I've never heard of it before, but I kind of wonder why he went to an obviously biased website for his definition rather than Wikipedia, which also offers definition of miracle, or a dictionary, which is where people generally get definitions from. But basically, he's just claiming that it's a normal operation of nature suspended by supernatural actions, basically divine intervention. That's usually what we think of a miracle as. I did go to a dictionary. I Googled it, and the definition I got was a surprising and welcome event not explainable by natural laws considered to be the work of a divine agency. I'm not sure I love that definition either, but it's basically the same. It's divine intervention. Essentially, a miracle is an unusual manifestation of God's power designed to accomplish a specific purpose. Why a specific purpose? Can miracles not happen accidentally? A miracle is not necessarily a violation of the laws of nature. God could demonstrate his power by using the laws of nature in an unusual way. For example, God uses wind, a natural phenomenon, to drive back the water of the Red Sea, allowing the exodus of the Israelites. Although there is no obvious violation of physics, who could doubt that the parting of the Red Sea constitutes a miracle? I wouldn't doubt that at all, but I would doubt that it was not an obvious violation of physics. If the Red Sea was parted by wind, it was wind coming from two different directions at such a powerful force the Israelites could not possibly walk through it. It's a violation of physics because this does not happen. This is not something we've ever observed, something we ever will observe, because it just can't happen. We don't know of any phenomenon where wind would act like that, even if it uses a natural phenomenon of wind. And I may be pedantic here, just arguing against a specific example because it's such a bad one, but I couldn't personally come up with something that would constitute a miracle that doesn't violate the laws of nature. We should be careful about assuming God has suspended a law of nature to perform any particular miracle. After all, we do not know all the laws of nature. Thank you for that point, Paul Taylor. We don't necessarily know all of the laws of nature, so if something appears to be a miracle, it may not. It may be a natural phenomenon that we just don't understand yet. I'm sure that's not the point that he wanted to make, but he did. Most definitions given for the word miracle are interestingly partial. The popular Christian author and broadcaster C.S. Lewis wrote this in the introduction to his book on the subject. I use the word miracle to mean an interference with nature by supernatural power. That basically means the same thing. It's again, an interference with nature. He's saying that natural laws are broken by supernatural power, by divine intervention. He assumes that laws of nature have to be broken, but then again, it seems that they have to be. The 18th century secular philosopher David Hume had a different approach. He defined a miracle as a transgression of a law of nature by a particular volition of the deity or by the interposition of some invisible agent. They basically keep restating the same thing. It's divine intervention. It's the laws of nature being broken by a god. He went on to argue that the evidence will always be stronger for natural laws than for miracles, and hence he concluded that the wise man should always favor natural law instead of a miracle. That is an accurate representation of what Hume said. Hence, miracles do not happen. He didn't quite say miracles don't happen, but we shouldn't believe people when they say they happen. Hume's definition goes beyond the standard definition of a miracle. Maybe. Nonetheless, even if we accept this restricted definition, his argument does not stand. Oh, pray tell. Please tell us why, Mr. Paul Taylor. The arguments used by Hume and Lewis have been critiqued as using circular reasoning. Circular reasoning, that's synonymous with begging the question. It's the same logical fallacy. Where else have we seen begging the question before? Circular reasoning is the logical fallacy whereby the conclusion to an argument is assumed as a presupposition. That's a good definition. He seems to know what circular reasoning slash begging the question is. Notion that miracles are impossible because they would potentially go beyond the laws of nature is not a rational argument. It merely presupposes the very thing it is supposed to be proving. That's great. You're absolutely right. It's a good thing then that neither Lewis nor Hume is claiming that miracles are impossible, or because they're making the argument that it's impossible, therefore we shouldn't believe miracles. He quoted Hume here. He seems to have read him. How does he not understand that Hume did not claim that miracles don't happen? I went to Wikipedia to David Hume's page, and under problem of miracles, it said, although Hume leaves open the possibility of miracles to occur and be reported, he believes miracles can happen. He offers various arguments about this ever having happened in history. I'm going to present those, because not only is David Hume my favorite philosopher, and not only have I read an inquiry concerning human understanding many times, but I absolutely love this topic. I would love to talk about this, and I will in just a moment. Let's finish this chapter up. Some have suggested the creationist argument is also circular, since it assumes the inerrancy of Scripture. Yeah, I've argued that too. However, the inerrancy of Scripture can be argued without assuming up front that violations of natural law ever occur. Was that the argument we were making? In fact, the very existence of laws of nature make no sense apart from Scripture, as we have written elsewhere. Kudos to him to have at least referenced the first chapter and to say, hey, we're not making a circular argument because that's a logical fallacy as cited in the first chapter. But he doesn't seem to understand, because the existence of laws of nature making no sense apart from Scripture has been proven with Scripture. You have to assume that Scripture is true to believe those statements, and that is circular reasoning. He knows what circular reasoning is. He's just oblivious to it when he's using it, and when Jason Leisel used it in the first chapter. So he believes that using our presupposition that the Bible is true, let's see what case can be made for their existence. And that's all he has to do with the skeptics and those who claim that miracles can't happen. He goes on in these sections. I'm just going to read the titles of the sections. The word miracle in the Old Testament. The word miracle in the New Testament. Occurrence of miracles throughout the Old Testament. Miracles of Jesus. Witnesses. Miracles in evolution. All he's doing is giving you examples of where miracles occur in the Bible. I'm going to skip that because I'm going to assume that, just like me, you believe that the Bible claims that many miracles happen. That's not a case that actually needs to be made. But he hasn't established that the Bible is true, therefore we ought to believe it when it talks about miracles. Let's go to Hume's reasoning and see what Hume actually said against miracles, because Hume is so brilliant on this. He has such a good argument against it. The Portable Atheist does a good job on this too. They present what Hume actually said and then they expand on it, and they do such a great job of explaining it, even though I think Hume's language is simple enough for us to understand. You can read an inquiry of human understanding concerning human understanding, and it would probably take you an hour and a half at most, and I think you would understand everything he says. He uses a lot of language that we don't use today, but it's not like reading another language. It's understandable enough, and he's so clever. Now, what he argues against isn't specifically that miracles couldn't happen. He doesn't argue against the logic of them, but he's arguing that witnesses of miracles shouldn't be believed. He says that all miracles that are presented to us are from personal experience of witnesses. And he says, exactly as Paul Taylor repeated, when given the witness of a miracle or the laws of nature, we ought to go with the laws of nature, because the laws of nature follow a pattern. They're consistent. We see these over and over. The actions of wind, for instance, we never see it part a sea. We see wind always moving in one direction, not two simultaneously in opposite directions. We don't see people passing through winds that are so powerful as to lift up seas. These are laws of nature that we've seen through our own experience, that we've built up a pattern by against the witness of people who claim to have seen otherwise. Now, we know from our personal experience that people can lie or can be mistaken and just simply not have seen or experienced what they thought they did. Or they can misremember or confabulate memories, stuff like that. David Hume believed in behavioral economics far before that was even a thing. He believed that people didn't come to their conclusions by reason, but by feelings and biases. And this is basically why I love him so much, because I'm so into behavioral economics. He claims that because witnesses are so unreliable and the laws of nature are so reliable, that when you weigh the evidence, do some Bayesian reasoning and come up with which is more probable, the laws of nature are always more probable. They're far more probable. And so, given somebody testifying that the laws of nature were broken or the laws of nature are the same, we should always go with the fact that the laws of nature are the same. He even claims that for this balance to be tipped, we would have to believe that the witness, the testimony from the witness would have to be more miraculous than the miracle itself and its falsification. It would have to be greater than a miracle for this person to be lying or mistaken about what they saw. And he couldn't come up with any instance of where that could happen. I can't either. I don't think it's possible. And so we should always believe that the laws of nature are the same. Now, why shouldn't we believe the Bible particularly on this? Because we have great reason to believe that the writers of the Bible were biased. Absolutely every single person who wrote an Old Testament book, even if we don't know who they were, we know that they were believers in the Jewish religion. They weren't outsiders commenting on what they saw of the Jews. The New Testament is only written by Christians. It is only written by people who believe in the Christian faith and want you to believe in it, and so that's why they're presenting evidence that would show that their God is real, even if they have to make it up. Even if they're just telling stories that other people told and they believe them because they want to believe them, just like modern Christians do. That's not a hard thing to expect. And compared to the idea that these things actually happened, things that we haven't witnessed or experienced ourselves, it's obvious where to go. Obviously, we don't believe in the miracles. Now, of course, this author and others think that we're just discounting the supernatural, that we don't believe that the natural can happen. And there's a reason that science is only naturalistic and doesn't believe in the supernatural. And it's because the supernatural, by its very definition, is unprovable. We can't define a cause. We can't look at something supernatural and say, well, it was done by this, because we can't. By definition of supernatural, we can't define a cause. And even Christians don't and can't, and they depend on naturalism too, unless in a spiritual context. For instance, in the book Nonsense on Stilts by Masimoto, I think I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name. He argued that if your car was broken in the morning, you would probably try to run it another time, and if it still didn't work, you would probably check the oil. You'd make sure that like your parking brake wasn't on, or that the distributor cap was broken. You'd go through the things that you could probably diagnose yourself. And if that didn't work, you would probably take your car to a dealer or a mechanic. And if that didn't work, you would probably get a new car. At no point would you think to call your pastor and say, "Hey, my car is demonically possessed," or "God doesn't want my car to work ever again," or insert your own supernatural explanation here. We don't jump to that, because even if we thought that that was a possibility, what could we do about it? I mean, somebody might pray if their car doesn't start and they can't figure out how to do it themselves. If they thought, oh, I have to take it to a mechanic and I can't afford a mechanic, they might pray first. And I believe that does happen. I think that's one of the main reasons for prayer. That's why there's supposedly no atheists in foxholes, because people will grasp at straws when they don't have any other solution. They will turn to prayer when there's nothing else they can do to solve a problem. But that's not because they actually believe that there's something supernatural wrong with their car. They're just hoping that something supernatural can come in and uh, fix their car. So we're all supernatural. We're all naturalists at heart. Even Christians only reach for the supernatural when they have to explain something from the Bible and whatnot. So uh, Paul Taylor, I think, is being a little dishonest. I don't think he actually believes miracles can happen. I don't think he's ever witnessed a miracle. He just has faith in the Bible, which says that miracles happen, and so thus he has to believe that miracles can happen, even though he wouldn't ever act as if they do. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope if you've never read David Hume's Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding, or any of his other fantastic books on empiricism and logic, you really ought to. I mean, they're all he wrote back in the late 1700s, so of course all of his books are in the public domain. You can get them from Guggenheim.org and other similar sources that hold on to these old books, so you can view them on the internet. I'll catch you later next time on Chapter 10, How to Do Foolproof Apologetics, again by Jason Leisel. I think we'll enjoy this one, and I'll have a lot to say on the topic. Peace out.